Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. And now, a special message from Officer Eric Adams of the NYPD.
I cannot continue my re-election campaign. The constant media speculation about my future and the Campaign Finance Board's decision to withhold millions of dollars have undermined my ability to raise the funds needed for a serious campaign. I hope that over time, New Yorkers will see this city thrive under our leadership, and that policies we put in place should be continued and expanded. I hope you will see that despite the headlines and innuendo, I always put you before me.
Let us now observe a moment of silence for the fate of Officer Eric Adams of the NYPD's career. Alright, moment's over. Unfortunately, Officer Eric Adams of the NYPD will no longer be moonlighting as the city's mayor. Now he'll have to go back to the hog farm and find himself a square job. All of this was so predictable, you could see all this mess coming for the longest time. Eric Adams by now should have already had his mail forwarded to whatever his new address is going to be. But one thing's for sure, once he's gone, even though he won't be forgotten, he also won't be missed either. In news that surprises absolutely nobody, Officer Eric Adams of the NYPD has dropped out of the New York mayor's race. But the question is, was he ever in it? And sure, his various legal scandals had more than a little to do with him dropping out, but the reality is, this man also had other issues just being mayor alone that made it where he more than likely wouldn't have gotten reelected anyway. But I, for one, am shocked. I tell you, shocked! That his co-workers over at the local pigsty, the NYPD, didn't come to his rescue. But then again, those guys don't even lift a finger or say a word when a black cop is getting charged with something. So why start now? They definitely didn't have his back when he was getting slapped with all those federal charges, and his name, such as it was getting dragged through the mud. And now with Officer Mushmouth having left the scene, people are asking what's going to happen with the New York mayor's race. Well, if the current standing is any indication, Mamdani is leading in all the polls by at least 20 points. That places him well ahead of his nearest competitor, the disgraced former Governor Andrew Cuomo. Now, Cuomo has gotten a surge of money the day after Officer Eric Adams of the NYPD went back to the precinct, but I wouldn't be too optimistic if I was Cuomo. And it's not just his bad poll numbers. Elections are good for business if you're the white media, and they have a vested financial interest in making it seem like every high-profile political race is a nail-biter, as if there's no way to know who's going to win, even when they already know the result isn't in doubt. The white media wants to keep people engaged, so they spend their time painting scenarios of how such and such second-place candidate might have some roadmap to victory if thus and so happens. Feeding people's delusions is the white media's stock and trade, and it doesn't just go for the viewing public, it also goes for politicians who are silly enough to buy into the white media's hype about them. That's the first reason why it's a good idea for Cuomo not to be listening to the white media's coverage about him, because it's mostly what the financiers in New York want to hear, which is that there's a chance that this guy could actually win. And secondly, money is no longer the sole determinant of who wins elections. Sure, money matters in political races. It's crucial. You definitely won't win without it. But Trump has consistently proven that money is not the only thing. And if the electorate is fed up with the usual suspects running for office, like, say, a corrupt local dynasty called the Cuomos, then even if your opponent does out-fundraise you, all you need is an adequate amount of money. You don't need more than he's got. You just need enough to actually run your campaign. That's what Donald Trump figured out. Now, let's also get something else straight. Mamdani is painfully aware that the economic forces he's claiming to want to take on are not enthused about him. He'll need them on his side if he's going to run the city because, as Officer Eric Adams of the NYPD has found out, those billionaires have been running New York a lot longer than he has. And while these rich kleptocrats would prefer Cuomo, the reality is they'll put up with Mamdani if they have to. That's why Mamdani has started the process already of pivoting and ameliorating some of his more fiery rhetoric. He's clearly sending the not-so-subtle signals that he doesn't want to totally alienate the billionaires and gazillionaires in New York City. What this means is he's not just looking at his fortunes in New York, he's probably already, just like Officer Eric Adams of the NYPD, dreaming of higher office. I know that there's more than a few people in my listening audience who probably have sympathetic leanings where Mamdani is concerned, or at the very least, they look at him as the kind of disruptor they would prefer, and I'm not here to say yay or nay to that, but what I am here to say is, at the end of the day, you gotta be realistic about the way that politics actually works for a candidate who's actually trying to win. The billionaire class that he claims to want to go to war with may not necessarily be his cup of tea, but they're not going anywhere any more than he is. And speaking strictly in terms of realpolitik, if these guys are going to be stuck with each other, they might as well stick together. Don't be surprised if Mamdani eventually emerges as somebody who's in these guys' hip pocket. Far stranger things have happened in American politics, but this morning's briefing isn't about handicapping the outcome of the mayoral election or its aftermath. It's actually about reflecting on the end of an era. Officer Eric Adams of the NYPD came seemingly out of nowhere with tons of white money that nobody knew where it came from, and then people started actually looking into the finances and found out that it came from a whole bunch of shadowy foreign donors. And to think that Officer Eric Adams of the NYPD began his short-lived political career by wagging his finger at black New Yorkers' faces and giving them the "but what about black-on-black crime" spiel. Yeah, he was absolutely shameless about performing and buck dancing for those white dark money donors that he wanted cash from, and for a hot minute, it seemed like they actually genuinely wanted to support him. And speaking of support, also don't forget that he had some fellow bootlicks out there, some buck dancing preachers and other members of the Butter Biscuit Brigade, these clowns who have been selling out black New Yorkers since time immemorial. When Officer Eric Adams goes ahead and gets put out to pasture, don't forget about any of those creeps. They were in there with him, they exposed who they are, and they should have no credibility with any black New Yorker, nor should they receive any tolerance either. They were right in there with him, nodding their empty heads on cue. So Officer Eric Adams of the NYPD and his coterie of coons were only too eager to bend over and give evil an opening, especially if Officer Eric Adams thought that it would elevate himself. But like every bootlick, he simply didn't understand that white power never had any long-term plans for him. He was only there as a stopgap, a temporary measure until they could find someone more acceptable to put in his place. And as we can see, it didn't take long. It's like I've always told you, white power doesn't put these clowns into these positions without knowing exactly how it's going to get rid of them when the time comes. And the time always comes. Unfortunately, there's plenty of bootlicks who are in political office, and tragically, there's a number of others who are waiting in the wings desperately hoping to get into political office. Well, there's one lesson that all of these chumps need to internalize. The key to political safety and security is not sucking up to some white political donor, some dark money deep pockets that you think you have to appeal to by spitting in the black community's face. The key to actual political safety and security is in building strong ties to the black community so that when it comes time to run for re-election, the people are already on your side. That helps a lot, especially if you got the white media who's decided they want to go ahead and take shots at you. See, the orange man recognized that his political lifeline was maintaining a strong tie to his base. That's why he constantly caters to them, constantly throwing them red meat, and he won't say anything critical of them. A lesson that the Democrats could stand to learn. Because a strong connection to your political base can overcome your opponent's financial advantage. Trump never finger wags at his political base. He never lectures them, condescends to them, or tells them that they're wrong. And that's the reason why the deplorables have been loyal to the orange man for a decade now. Because regardless of how venal and corrupt the man is, at the end of the day, he has not broken faith with those voters that he's been depending on. He understands the game of politics far better than a lot of the Democrats do. He knows where his power lies, and he's not about to fumble the ball on that one. Meanwhile, Officer Eric Adams is now staring into a very uncertain future. There is, of course, precedent for corrupt former police officials to have a life after politics. After all, it was the corrupt former police commissioner Bernard Kerik who started a consulting business, but then again, that was before he wound up going to prison. Eric Adams, I don't think, will be so lucky. The white powers that be, they're not going to make room for him like Giuliani did for his buddy Bernard Kerik. They're not even going to bother to have this guy on Fox News, no matter how much he talks down to the black community. What's going to become of Eric Adams at this point? Since he so loves licking boots so much, I think he would actually have a great second career as a shoeshine boy. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. Starlet Thompson, Deep Eye 904, Ragland, Terrence Gaines, and Alice Ransom. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.